Hey everyone, it's me, your old buddy Dr. Sparkle, and I know you guys have not really heard much from me in the last year or so. Just taking a moment to make a video just to kind of apologize and explain that no, I'm not disappeared forever. I am still going to be making more videos. Just so you know, there's actually going to be a video released in a couple days, the new episode of Chrontendo. Sort of a Halloween video because we're covering a very famous and well-loved spooky game. And, I definitely did not mean to be away for so long. It's just that I've had so much stuff going on in my life. I'm not really the kind of person to discuss my personal life in my videos, but just as a way of explanation, I've had a pretty rough last 2 years. I feel like I've aged about 5-6 years in the last 18 months or so. Just to kind of give you the lowdown so you understand. My mother died earlier this year, and also my wife's father died this year as well. I'm an only child, really the only living relative my mother had. So I was pretty much the only one who was going to be looking after her at some point. Just so you kind of have the background, my mother had what we believed to be a stroke last year. It was actually kind of shocking. We thought she had the flu. She was not feeling well. She was vomiting. We ended up taking her to the ER. She was diagnosed with a stroke in the back of the brain. And the odd thing is that they told us that that's the part of the brain that controls, swallowing, being able to walk, balance, that kind of thing. And she seemed to check out okay, but because of bleeding in the brain, they had to do some surgery. And, I was sort of at that time under the impression that she might be able to return somewhat to a normal life after she recovered from the hospital. They said she wouldn't lose the ability to speak or memory or that sort of thing just because of where the stroke happened. And I don't quite know why, but I guess she never really fully recovered from the surgery. Took her actually a couple days to come out of anesthesia. And when she did, she was delusional, paranoid, and she never really snapped out of it. Originally our plan was to have her move in here with us, which we actually did once she was released from the hospital. And it's not easy having a sick family member living with you. While she was, physically fine in a lot of ways other than being a bit weak mentally, she was completely gone. And I knew what I was getting into. I've actually, my grandfather, when he was in his 90s, moved in here with us as well, and we took care of him up until he died. He died in the house. He was physically frail, but mentally reasonably okay. It was not really a problem. My wife's mother lived with us for a little while when she was recovering from knee surgery. Again, it wasn't really that bad, but I really wasn't prepared for dealing with my mother in her condition. So I was talking to someone, we were trying to get her put on Medi-Cal, which is California's version of Medicaid. And as he was saying, it doesn't really matter, who you are. You can be one of those guys who works 60-hour weeks, doesn't bother you. But this kind of situation will eventually sort of break you down. Just dealing with a person in a mentally not well state pretty much 24 hours a day when you're here is going to drive you crazy. And unfortunately, she was not able to really kind of understand what she had to do to keep herself safe. We had to keep her out of the kitchen. She would try to get up at night and walk around. We could not convince her to stop doing this, so I would usually wake up multiple times during the night. It got to the point where after a bit of time I was sort of kind of half asleep, half awake, and the second I hear a noise I'd wake up. I guess it's when you have a newborn baby in the house, except that at my age I really can't be dealing with waking up 20 times a night like you can when you are young. After some time, she got up a couple times in the night. She eventually fell We had to call ER. She was taken to the hospital again. We began to realize that we would have to sort of put her in a facilitated care facility, probably permanently. Eventually, we kind of lost hope that she would ever be moving, back into her own place, that she would ever really recover. This kind of went on, and it was actually difficult finding a place for her. We live in Northern California. From what I understand, Medicaid works pretty simply in most states. In California, for whatever reason, we need to do everything differently and make it more complicated. And it is apparently very difficult to find what they call a Medi-Cal bed in California. It's at various points. She had been in skilled nursing facilities for a while, which were nearby in town. No one really wanted to take her on permanently, though. We were told we sort of had to find a place that would accept her, then get her on Medi-Cal, and then they couldn't eject her. Because of her mental condition, no one would really take her. We ended up having to send her to a nursing facility in the Southern Bay Area, which was difficult. As I mentioned, we live in Northern California, and it is a multiple-hour drive down there every weekend to visit her, which eventually kind of wore us down a bit. Once she was ready to sort of graduate to a permanent place to stay, we tried to find something in the area. Eventually, after a bit of time, after being switched around from a couple different facilities and hospitals in around the San Jose area, they finally found a place that would take her in Los Angeles, which is not a place we can simply drive down to the weekend, every time. She was there for a while. We booked a flight to come down and visit her. We got a call from the nursing facility earlier this year saying that she's not doing well. I said, well, we're going to be coming down 2 weeks. We have tickets booked. And they said, no, you need to come down as soon as possible. So we rebooked our tickets and made it down there to see her when she died about 2 days later. And this was, I guess, to be expected at this point. It's just that after the stroke, they promised us so much that, it's a simple matter of her recovering. She'll be able to walk. Her memory, her mind will not be affected. It was difficult to see her never mentally return to sort of the person that she was. And she was maybe kind of getting a little bit older, maybe a little bit confused before she had the stroke, but to see her be someone who, didn't know who she was, she would behave in ways that made no sense. Once I went to visit her in one of the nursing facilities, and she was upset because she claimed that she had read in a newspaper article that day that I had died, and the nurses had all told her that I had died. And of course, none of that happened, but that's just how completely detached from reality she had become. So at this point, we sort of had to deal with her taking care of her remains and stuff. And unfortunately, she had retired about a year ago. She was not really that old when she died, and she was apparently not aware that part of her retirement plan she didn't get to keep her health care. So she went into Medicare, and she, as well as me, wasn't really aware that Medicare doesn't pay for hospital bills and things quite the way her insurance company did. She had relatively small deductibles. With the Medicare, they pay a percentage. So she racked up, unfortunately, some pretty large medical bills. Not only for her hospital stays and so on, but also from the facilities, which really aren't covered under Medicare, but can be covered under Medi-Cal, though she died before that was actually taken care of. So she got stuck with just, an enormous number of bills. The amount of bills that we have coming through constantly for every single aspect of her care is just insane. We get bills from every single doctor that saw her, which I guess is how it's done on Medicare. They pay a percentage and the doctors then bill you for the rest. So, of course, we are dealing with all that. Various other absurd things happened. She apparently had not been paying her car payments for a couple months, and shortly after she went to the hospital, the car was gone. We discovered it was repossessed, and we had to drive down to like the Bay Area to a yard where they towed it. Just that sort of stuff. There were a lot of things that she had not been really paying attention to or not had been taken care of that I didn't actually know about until suddenly I had to sort of go in and take care of all of her taxes, finances, all that kind of stuff, and it's a bit of a mess, quite frankly. And the kind of ironic or inappropriate thing is that 3 days after she died, we got news that from my wife's father is going into hospice, and he had definitely not a well man. He had been suffering from diabetes for years, kind of self-induced diabetes, just based on his habits. And he died, he hung on a surprisingly long time in his condition. The man had been bedridden for like 10 years or something like that. Finally, he moved on. So it's been a rough year for both me and my wife. Was not necessarily close to her father, but it's difficult to go through all this, and her family is also beside itself. I have no remaining family myself at this point other than my wife. So it's been a difficult year, and the amount of guilt that you feel when something like this happens can be overwhelming. I mean, you try to take care of your parents the best you can, but once they're gone, you always look back and always think about the things you did wrong. Like maybe you should have checked in on them more. Maybe you should have been more careful. I mean, I had been helping her things like with her taxes and stuff, but I was not aware that, for example, she had not been paying like her county like waste pickup and stuff for like a year. She hadn't registered her car in 2 years. We sold the car to someone who had to, and there's like $2,000 in fines for her not registering it. Just that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's kind of hard to sort of, after this happens, to wake up every day and think about maybe all the things that you did wrong, and that maybe you should have, I don't know, seen early signs or something like that. And the fact that, she died, all the way on the other side of the state, and the fact that we couldn't see her on a regular basis, that must have been hard on her. And I don't know why it has to be that way. Again, I've been told that in any other state, this would have been, finding a place for her would have been simple because of the weird Medi-Cal rules in California. It's difficult and often a very, very long wait to get a Medi-Cal bed, and we were lucky to get what we found within a relatively short period of time. So, once again, just thanks for your patience. As I mentioned earlier, there is going to be the new Chrontendo episode 53 is going to be uploaded. I think probably hopefully the day before Thanksgiving. There's going to be another episode of Cron Turbo coming out shortly after that, as well as like a few other things. So once again, thanks for your patience. Thank you for watching the videos all these years. Thank you for watching this one. I actually have a new camera that I got a while back, but never really got a chance to use just because of everything that happened. So who knows, maybe this video looks a little better. There's actually a sort of legitimate microphone attached to this, so maybe the sound's a bit better. And I do hope to sort of keep putting these things out on a regular basis. It's just been a long road for me to kind of go from this almost like utter despair, kind of depression, not really sure what to kind of do, after everything happened. But as I mentioned, thanks for your patience, and keep an eye out. There'll be some new stuff coming out soon. Once again, thank you so much.